Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. It's been a long time, isn't it? Like a really long time. Anyways, let's get right into it. Today I will be explaining my process of editing an image, especially landscapes. And I break it down into three parts. The first one we deal with Photoshop, the second one we deal with Lightroom, and the third one we come back to Photoshop. Now don't get scared of Photoshop. It is not something like rocket science or something, and I'll explain the logic for every step that I do. It should be easy. But this first step is really important because when we take a photo like this, most of the colors are not visible. Like in this case, there might be a lot of reds, but I cannot see any reds here. And if the photo is just green, I know that this is a very beautiful photo, but if the photo is just like this, it's just one color here and one color there. It is not just colorful. It's a beautiful photo, don't get me wrong. It's a very beautiful photo. It is just that if we want the colors to pop up, we will have to extract the colors. Anyways, the first step, go click this button right here on Photoshop and select on selective color. We get a box like this. Now I'll tell you what this means. Now select red, and whatever adjustments that you do here, it will only act on the reds present in this case. Like for example, let's say I move the slider to my left. You see there's something happening on the screen. So it will select all the reds. This slider, if you move it to the right, it becomes a bit, what's cyan, right? So like you're increasing cyan. Now if you're decreasing this, it means that you're increasing red. It's the exact opposite of red. Now magenta is the exact opposite of green. Yellow is the exact opposite of blue. Right? So now if I move this to my left, it means that I'm increasing the reds. Now again, if I move this to my right, it means that I'm increasing the green. If I move this to my right, it means that I'm increasing the magenta. Right? So I'm happy with this. You can just now play around. You know that when you select red, you're only acting on the areas where red color is present. Right? Now I'll move yellow also because I want it to be a bit warm maybe. So I'll keep it this way. Next, let's go to yellows. Now yellows are present, like yellow might not be like exact yellow here, but yellows are present in greens also. I'll show you. Now in yellow, let's say I want to increase the green a bit. You see? So wherever it's acting, that is the place where it is actually yellow. And if you want to increase the greenish tinge, you can move it to your left. If you want to decrease it, move it to your right. But I'm okay with how the image is. I'm not bothered. Because anyways, the image has a lot of green and yellow. I'm okay with it. I will not tamper with them. My only concern is I want to bring out reds because there are no reds present there. Coming to the blues, the blues are here. Most of the times I actually edit it when I go back to Lightroom, so I'll leave it that way. Whites. Where are the whites? Whites are here and whites are in the clouds. If I move my yellow to my right, I know that obviously I'm increasing my yellow. If I move it to my left, I'm increasing my blues because yellow is exactly opposite to blue. So I'll move it to bit of left maybe because I want this to be like cold and this to be warm, and that gives us a contrast, right? Also, we are only acting on whites, remember. Now if I increase blacks, it means that whites become darker. If I move it to my left, it means white becomes brighter. But I think I'm okay with how it is. Right. I'm done with the color correction. Now let's see what it was before and after. Before color correction, it was something like this. And after color correction, it is something like this. And it is not a huge difference, as you can see. But if I create a duplicate of this, let's say I'm creating a duplicate layer. Where is it? Here. Press OK. You see the colors now starts to accentuate. Now create one more duplicate layer. If you press Ctrl J, automatically it will be created. You see? Now if they are like, you can see the reds here, you can see the brown here, and you can see all the colors separated from each other. Now this one, I don't think I want it to be this strong. It was, now if this layer wasn't there, this was okay. We can deal with it. Now if this layer was there, it was too much. So probably only this layer, I will decrease my opacity to, let's say, around 40% or something. So this worked. So overall, you know how the image was looking before, and this is after. Now sometimes the colors might be glaring. If you want to decrease the colors, you know that you have 3 layers. You can delete one of the layers and then proceed with it. but I think I will stick to what it is like this. Right. Now just save the image. I'll save it on desktop. I'll name it as image for YouTube and save it on my desktop. Right. So the next step, now I will not tamper with the image here, and I'll delete all these layers, like, and I delete all the layers so that I get back to my original image. The reason I'm doing this is we'll come back to where it is right now and we'll compare the final image to this image, because anyways, remember the third step is Photoshop. Let's go to Lightroom now. There's some image there. Let's just go import the file that we just saved. This is boring stuff. Okay, right at the last, okay. So let's say import it, and this is where we are. Select it, click on develop, and then there you go. So now once we have the image on Lightroom, my first step is always to decrease the highlights and to open up the shadows, because I want to bring out all the details that are there. Now if it gives you some surreal or some stupid feeling like thing, this will be auto corrected in the last step when we go back to Photoshop. Right. Alright, so this is our image now. Whites, how do we adjust the whites? Press shift and double click on whites. The computer will automatically take a value which it thinks it is correct for your image. Similarly for blacks, hold the shift key and double click on blacks, and it will automatically adjust to what the computer thinks is correct for your blacks. Right, so the first 4 steps are over. Decrease the highlights, increase the shadows, correct whites and blacks. Now coming back to the colors part, and this is where the fun begins. In Photoshop, we extracted the colors. We did not change the colors, right? So we got all the reds out. We separated reds from greens, and we have an image something like this, and we added contrast by having blue here and something warm here. Now we will try to change the colors. In most of the images, we are not really concerned about purple and magenta, and we don't touch them. But select hues and now see what happens when you slide this to your left. So this is all bluish, right? And now if we slide it to my left, it becomes green. If I slide it to my right, it becomes violet. So this is how hues affect. And you can slide, like for example, let's say some might like this, I don't like this. Some might like this, the extreme case. I might not be a big fan of this as well. So I will find a point where I am comfortable with that particular color. But for me, as far as blues are concerned, I guess they're okay. Aquas, there are no aquas at all, so it is not changing. Greens. Now if I move my greens to my right, it becomes, you see this green? It becomes this green. If I move it to my left, it becomes something like yellow. I prefer this. I prefer it to be more, something like dark green and vibrant, colorful. Now again yellow, if I move it to my left, it becomes something like reddish or something. If I move it to my right, it becomes something like green. Now we need to find some point where it is aesthetic. For me, I guess this looks okay. So I'll leave it at this. So that now yellows are separated, greens are separated, and we have a bit of reds here, and then this white and blue and something. Alright. Now orange, now you know where the oranges are, right? Now if I move it to my left, it becomes a bit red in color. I think this is fine. Now again, it just boils down to what your taste is with colors. Now I think I will let it be at this point. With reds, there are not much reds. I think there's only something here. I think I'll settle with this. So before we started Lightroom, the image was something like this, and after we did it, it was something like this. See, there's a lot of color changes that happen in Lightroom. So we are altering the colors just according to the hues. Now once this is done, whatever adjustments that we have done till now are all global adjustments, which means every adjustment that you apply will apply to the entire image. Now after that is done, in most of the cases I want my foreground or the ground part to be well lit, and I try to make the sky to be underexposed. Now if I only want this part to be underexposed, we have to do a local adjustment. So we have two ways of doing, like There are multiple ways of doing it, but most of the times I use these two tools here. One is the graduated filter, the other one is a brush. The first one, graduated filter. Select it and just drag it down so that the middle part, the middle line, is exactly at the horizon. So this is where I want to do it. Double click on effects, so whatever effects are there, they all come back to whatever the reset values are, so the default values are. And now I just decrease the exposure. That's it. Just decrease the exposure, and maybe I think I'll increase the highlights. So that's it. So my sky part is underexposed now. Click on enter, click on it again. That's done. Now some parts, let's say I want to shape the mm, direction of light now. I do not know where the light is coming from. In this case, it appears that since it is bright in color, maybe it is coming somewhere like this, something like this. So I assume that the light is falling this way, and I will shape my light. How do I do it? Select a brush. This is also called dodge and burn, where you make some of the areas to be bright and some of the areas to be dark. So select a brush, increase the exposure a bit. Nothing will happen on the picture because you have not selected any part for the local adjustment to happen. But I'm just increasing the exposure a bit, and I'm also increasing my highlights a bit. Now wherever you paint, it becomes bright. Like for example, let's say you paint here, you paint something like this and just paint it randomly. Like I'll come back to the shaping of light part later because it might be too much here to explain everything. But just wherever you think it is bright, wherever in this picture, try to paint it. It becomes brighter, right? Right. Now after you have painted, you know that if you just place your mouse on this small red black color thing, it will show you what are the areas that you have painted. Now once you have painted, if you want to alter it, like if you want to alter the settings, you can do it, and it will only apply to this part. You see, obviously we're not doing it so extreme, but I'm just showing you. Right. So I think this is fair enough. Now again, we have brightened a few parts. Now we will also darken a few parts. Take a new brush, click on new, double click on effect so that they all come back to the default values. Decrease the exposure just a bit, also the highlights just a bit, and paint on areas which you think are dark already in the color. So that will give you an extra contrast and also give you some kind of 3D effect, right? Something like this. So I think wherever the ridges are, I always try to paint there so that it shows you the ridge and it gives you a 3D kind of a feeling. So, right, think I'm done with it. So where are the parts that we have painted black? So these are the parts. Fine. So we will leave it like that. Deselect the brush. So if you click on the brush again, it gets deselected. And then the final step, I just try to see if I can increase the contrast just a bit and if it looks good or not. So this looks okay with me. So I'm okay with my editing on Lightroom as far as this is concerned. Now one last step, if you really want to make it pop, I'll use one more graduated filter on the side like this. Double click on effect so that it becomes default. And I'll try to increase the exposure a bit. So now what I mean to say is I am making the light come from this way because I'm making this bright, right? So I'm making the light come from this way. It gives you a feeling that light is falling from this side on these areas which we have painted bright. So this is okay. And increase the contrast usually of that area. Now whatever changes that you make, it is only affecting the area which is red in color here, which means the part which is towards my left hand side. Right. Also, I'll make it a bit warm because I want the light to be warm. I don't want just plain white light falling on it. Click on enter 2 times and the filter is gone. Right. So what was the image like when we imported it to Lightroom? Something like this. What is it now? Something like this. You see that light is falling from this side. We have already made the contrast to appear. The dodge and burn part thing that I've told you. And I'm happy with it. One last thing, if you want to change, if you want to play with If you want to have, let's say, a bit of goldenish tinge, just increase the temperature just a bit so that it becomes warm. And I'm happy with it. I'm happy with how it looks. I will export it. Export. Do not put in a subfolder. And I'll export it to desktop. Works. Right. So we have exported the image from here to desktop, and we'll open it again in Photoshop. But if you want to see how the image was looking before we got it here, it was this, and this is how it looks. A lot of difference, right? Right. Now let's get back to Photoshop. So this was the original image. Now we need to open the image that we have just saved from Lightroom, which is this. And some of the parts are like way too sharp for me. Like this part, they're way too sharp because we opened up the shadows, remember, in Lightroom, and that gave us a lot of details. Now I want the details to be there, but only in certain parts and not everywhere, and I want it to be a bit more contrasty. So there is something called autumn effect which we'll apply here. It's simple. Create a duplicate layer, press Ctrl J, you will create a duplicate layer, you see. Now select this layer. Remember that the layer which I have created on top, you select that layer, go to filter, go to blur, and press on Gaussian blur. This is too much of a blur, make it a bit less, something like this, where you can see the image but not very clearly. It should be something like that, like you're making the image a bit soft. So select a value so that your image is something like this and press OK. After you've done that, go to image, go to adjustments, and go to levels. Not curves. We can work with curves also, but let's say it's easier to work with levels. And move the slider to the inside and also the slider to the inside. In other words, we are creating contrast here. So where you feel that the contrast is right, stop there. I'm okay with this. Press on enter or OK. Right. Now this is still blurry, and if I want to remove the blur, go to blending options and select soft light. Right. So now with this image applied, with this layer applied, this is, you see, it's all like surreal, it's like shiny here. So this is called the autumn effect. This is too strong for me and I don't like it, and I also don't want it to be applied to every part, right? First of all, I don't like it to be so strong. So there's always something called opacity here, and if you decrease the opacity to, let's say, 45, it is not as strong. Let's say you decrease it to 10, it is not as strong as all. Now let's say you make it 75, it is strong. So now find a value which you are comfortable with. Let's say I'm comfortable with 45, and I don't want it to be applied to all the parts. So make it 45, again select this layer and click on this third button here, right? It says add a layer mask, click on that. It will add a mask which is white in color, which whenever the layer is white, it means that everything is visible. Now if I paint black on this, it means that will not be visible. So this layer will not be visible if I paint some of the parts black. So select a brush, select the color as black. If you want to decrease the size of the brush, use square brackets. If you both the square brackets, they'll either decrease or increase. So I'm okay with this, and I don't want it to be applied in this middle area. I just want it to be a bit sharp, right? These I'm okay with it, and this I think I'm okay with it. I just want this to be a bit sharp. Also, I have not selected the opacity to be 100 and flow to be 100. Now what are these values? We'll come back to it later. But just remember these values when you select a brush and paint on it. Right? Alright. So now let's see what the image was before the autumn effect was applied. It was something like this. After the autumn effect, it is something like this. You see? In the middle part here, it's not being affected because we painted it as black. So this layer is not applied here. It's only applied on the sides. And it gives you a surreal feeling. Something like this. And also, if this is not there, you see there's a lot of detail here. When you apply this, the details are gone. It becomes a bit softer and probably a bit pleasing to your eyes. Right. So with this, we have done through the entire process of my way of creating an image. Let's go and see how the initial image looked like. The initial image was like this. It was plain, there were no colors, and this was our final image. Full of colors, there's light being shaped, and everything. I hope this helps. This image, I'm sorry, and the first thing that I should have mentioned is giving credits to this image. I'm really sorry for that. This image was sent to us by a great photographer named Nicole, and he is absolutely brilliant. I will leave his Flickr address in the YouTube below. Right. And also, the way of why I edit my pictures probably suits my way of taking the pictures in the first place. It might not suit every style of clicking a picture and then editing this way, but if it helps, I'll really be happy for you. In this case, I try to apply my editing style, but yeah, anyways, let's get to that in the next chapter. My next video will be coming up next week, which is 7 days from now, where I will tell you a few more techniques how to make images sharper in Photoshop, how to make colors really pop up, just not like this, like really pop up with super blue blues and super uh, shady greens or something like that. And I will also help you understand how blurring will make the image look completely different to what it looks like. It's something different, like it is not something which you would find on the internet usually. Anyways, I hope to see you in the next video. Take care and have a nice day. And before you go, subscribe if you wish to see more videos such like this. Also, if you want any of my photos to be edited on YouTube, leave a comment below on which image that you want to get counted. Right. See you in the next week. Thank you.